big g'day and welcome to another edition of the Riddle District Football Netball League Footy Show. My name's Yeend. Pumped up to be with you as always. I'm here with Tara Murray from the Star Weekly. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We're looking back at the latest round of RDFNL action, and we'll turn our attention to Rockbank straight away because they've got lots of excitement going on. Got some good news last Friday morning. Club 18s. That's massive addition to the competition for their mighty Rams.
It is. For the Rams to have a third senior side, that's massive. This time last year, they were struggling to have enough numbers for reserves. I know at the start of last season, whether they could get a reserve side or up at all was a big thing, and they managed to get that. They've done a lot of work behind the scenes, and now they've got enough for a third senior side, and I know they're pretty excited about it. They put out that they wanted a coach Friday morning. By Friday afternoon, they'd already appointed a coach as well, so all good things happening down there.
Fantastic. And another, we'll look through the papers, a story that you've done this week on Saxon Woodruff playing game 400, starting from juniors to seniors. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so that's this coming weekend, so round, but obviously he's been there his whole life. He grew up in Rockbank. He's moved away, but he's always stuck with Rockbank and he's never looked at going elsewhere. He did captain the side quite a few years ago, I think for 3 or 4 years. He's also coached the under-18 side the last 3 years. So he's been through the highs and the lows at that club, and now he's sort of seen it's starting to come back up, and a lot of those players he's coached in the under-18s are now coming through the system and he's sort of playing with them. So the first Rams player to play 400 games, so it'll be a massive weekend for them against Diggers Rest.
Terrific. And
Macedon.
Yeah, absolutely. Big game over there, which we'll talk a little bit later on in the week. But you can pick up this week's copy of the Melton Moorabool Star Weekly for all that, or you can check online as well. So, makes for a great read. As we turn our attention to their game this past weekend against Diggers Rest, and Diggers Rest 25-19, 169 to Rockbank 7-7. 49. I guess the margin sort of crept away in the second half. There was 9 goals to 5 in the first half before Diggers Rest slammed on 9 goals to 1 in the third term and ended the contest.
Yeah, and you sort of think that's sort of been the way Diggers Rest has been this season. They've played well for halves and quarters. They haven't been able to put that whole game together. As you said, Rockbank, they really stuck at it at the first half, but they just didn't have that class in the second half to match it with the Boroughs.
Yeah, certainly. That's an improvement thing for them, because when we reflected the last time those two teams met back last year, it was over a 300-point margin. So significant improvement there, and barring an ordinary second half, the Rams showed significant signs of improvement.
Yeah, and for them, you've got to look. It's last year's Wooden Spooners versus last year's Premiers, and that gap has closed.
Yeah. Exactly. Take away that third term, it's a completely different game. Good to see Matty Krull get in the goals. He kicked 4, and the Boroughs spread the workload around again, which is great for them. Another big game that sort of took place over the weekend. Macedon started with a ball out of the gate against Broadford, 9 goals to 1 en route to a 23-19, 157 to 2-4-16 win. So 141-point win. How did you see that one?
You've got to look at the moment looks like the likely Wooden Spooners against the early Premiership favourites, and it sort of played out that way. I think it was 9 goals to 1 in that first quarter. Game over already. The Cats have done what they've done to every single team this season. They've just smashed them, and you've got to look. They've got so many options, not just within the forward line, but across the board. You look, Jason Cook. I think the last 4 weeks he's kicked 6, 4, 5, and 8 goals. So you've got him kicking those goals, and then you've got your key forwards like Chris Kilmartin and Matthew Knox as well. They're hard to stop. Yeah,
it's definitely hard to stop there with Cookie. When he's in full flight, he is very, very hard to stop. But from more reports, Broadford only kicked 2 goals to the game, but they did play better than that, and they had a key injury during the game, and they were a bit short on the key position play department, but they kept going, and the scoreboard, from what I've been told, didn't really reflect the competitiveness from their part.
But then you could look at it, Macedon kicking 23-19.
Yep.
You've got over 40 scoring shots to 6.
Yeah.
You could quite easily say the scoreboard could have been a lot bigger as well.
Exactly. We probably could have seen a 30-goal result there. Sunbury Kangaroos 17-16, 118 defeated Melton Central 7-5-47. Barring a 6-goal to nothing first term, this game could have gone either way sort of heading into this contest, because Centrals could have got within 5 goals, or the margin could have been 10 goals. That was sort of the general consensus I got heading into the contest, and unfortunately for the Centrals, we did get a bigger margin.
And for me, it was going to give us more of an indication of where Centrals are at. They had a really good draw to start the season. They had 3 wins and were competitive against Romsey. This is the first time they've played a side that's probably in that top 4-5 bracket, and they showed that they couldn't quite match it with them. And Sunbury Kangaroos seemed to be finding their connections a little bit better. Early on, it was all Ryan Pretty in front of goal. Now they're getting that spread of goals. I know Mitch Farmer, Phil Gobb have sort of stepped up the last couple of weeks. So it is sort of showing that the Kangaroos are starting to develop as a side like we thought they would.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something we spoke about a few weeks ago. And since we brought it up, they must be watching because they've done exactly that. And it's hard when you're over 9 goals down at halftime. You can't really get back from that from a Central's point of view. But they did fight it out in the second half. It was only 7 goals to 5 in the second half. So, again, sort of like, I guess, the Rockbank Diggers Rest scenario, just one bad half, put them right out of the contest and stop them from being very competitive. The game that you were at, Rupertswood 15-12, 102 defeated Riddle, 9-11-65 by 37 points. But the margin could have been a heck of a lot bigger considering the game.
It wasn't. The game to start with was very similar to Macedon Riddle a couple of weeks ago. The first 3 quarters, you had Rupertswood was in front, but they weren't comfortably in front. Riddle kept with them, even when they were a man down in the third quarter when James Nolan got sent from the field. So whether or not...
Come on, Jimmy. He's up there.
I've heard that could get him close to the 15 games and whether he can keep playing, but obviously I have heard that would be his last game for the season before he heads back up north for work. But that's something that will play out the next few weeks. And then you had the last quarter. I just thought the Sharks were going to go away with it. They looked like for a while, and then Riddle kicked 4 goals, late goals. So Rupertswood weren't happy with that. They were happy to get the win, but they weren't happy with their play. Kevin Fitzgerald said they didn't work hard enough. And he said there's still a long way to go for that side.
Still the flat track bullies, do you think?
Not necessarily flat track bullies. I think that was probably their most competitive game. Besides the Macedon game, which they've lost, they were challenged a bit more. They've still got a lot of work to do. I know they were missing Joel West, which is a massive out for them because they don't necessarily have that key forward. They're relying on either West or Dean Putt to play forward. And when you've got no West, Putt has to ruck more and you've got to find that second ruckman. So not only does it affect them in the middle and around the grounds, but it affects them in that forward line.
We'll watch with great interest to see how they go along in the coming weeks. But a spirited effort by Riddle. Hats off to them. They finished the game strongly, which is good for them.
It is, and I think that's probably what they would have been after their last game when they Macedon kicked 12 goals in that final quarter. So they would have been hoping to avoid a blowout, and they managed to do that.
Good news for them. It was pink day out at Romsey Park, and the Redbacks prevailed over their crosstown rivals Lancefield 12-18, 90-8, 7-55 by about 6 goals. There was very little sort of separating the sides in the first half before Romsey kicked away.
Yeah, that's what I was watching the scores and saw there was only the 4 points at halftime, and you thought, okay, could be a close match. But I think it's that little bit of extra class and skill that the Redbacks have shown this season, showed through in that second half, and they just seem they're able to do enough when they need to do enough. And obviously they've got that little bit of class. I know Matt Burkett's another one. I think he's been in the best 4 out of the 5 games. He was one of their best again on the weekend. So they've got that, and Romsey, which is starting to look like a side which can compete for a final spot, need to win games like that if they ask to play finals.
Still riding the high from the win over Diggers Rest the other week. Have they now put a target on their back that they can win those games?
I think people know they can win those games, and no one's taking Romsey lightly anymore.
Exactly. Well, they've got some big games coming up over the next few weeks, and we'll certainly see the best of them. The last game we'll touch on for this particular edition of the show, Wallen 13-14-92 defeated Wedding Heskett 5-12-42 by 50 points. There was only about 20 points separating the sides at half time before the Pies kicked away. They've come along leaps and bounds this year, haven't they? They
have, and as we've mentioned in the Diggers Rockbank game, the Sunbury Mountain Central's game, they're games where they're in the game, even Romsey Lancefield. Half-time, these teams can match it, but then it's after half-time they struggle to stay with them. So that's sort of shown the difference between those top sides that can play for a full quarters or even turn it on for that second half compared to some of these lower sides that aren't able to run out the games.
Looked like it was going to be a tipster's nightmare for half-time across most of those games too.
It is, but in the end, I think they were all convincing, and I know personally, I think I got all 6 right. So in the end, it was a pretty easy week to tip, and I think the closest margin was 35 points. So in the end, all the matches were pretty convincing.
Yeah, well, we've certainly got some big matches coming up, which we'll discuss later on in the week. Tara, thanks so much for joining us for this edition of the RDFNL Footy Show.
Thanks for having me.